Your pity smells just like your power, Alpha King. It's the same smell that lingered in the alley the night your enforcers cleaned the slums, the night I lost the use of my legs. Wait, before the next revelation unfolds. If this mystery has already captivated you, let us know where you're following this story from. To ensure you don't miss unexpected claims, broken bonds, or awakenings under the moon, subscribe and stay close. Now, back to the scene. Alpha King Kalen recoiled as if struck. The words, spoken softly from the girl huddled in the rickety, rust-covered wheelchair, hit him with the force of a physical blow. He was the High Alpha, ruler of the combined territories, a wolf of immense power and presence. He had faced down rogue warlords and negotiated peace with the ancient Fey courts. He did not cry. Yet his vision blurred, a sharp, stinging betrayal that tightened his throat. He forced the moisture back, his knuckles white as he gripped the arm of her chair. He had knelt to speak to her, a gesture of kindness. Now, kneeling felt like a position of surrender. The orphanage matron, a thin, weasel-like shifter named Scar, gasped in horror. "Ilara, you ungrateful wretch, apologize to the king." "She doesn't know what she's saying, Your Majesty. She's simple." Kalen raised one hand, silencing the woman without looking at her. His entire world had narrowed to the girl before him. Ilara. She couldn't have been more than 19. Her hair was a tangled mess of silver blonde, matching her eyes, which were not simple at all. They were ancient, cold, and filled with a brittle clarity that saw right through his royal facade. She was painfully thin, her flannel shirt and worn jeans hanging off her small frame. She looked broken, but her gaze was not. "What did you say?" he asked, his voice a low rumble. "You heard me," she whispered, her hands trembling in her lap. "You gave the order. The great cleansing of the Warrens. Your elite guard, the Stone Paw enforcers, came in the dead of night. They said they were hunting rogues." She laughed, a bitter, dry sound. "They hunted anyone who was weak, anyone who was different. My parents, they were just Omegas. They couldn't fight. I tried to run. One of your men, he was huge, smelled like ozone and cold steel, just like you. He didn't even use his claws. He just swatted me aside. Trash, he called me." She tapped her motionless legs. "I woke up 2 days later in the wreckage. I haven't walked since." Kalen felt the blood drain from his face. He remembered that night, 3 years ago. His beta, Torin, had brought him reports of a dangerous rogue cell destabilizing the slums, dealing in dark magic and preying on the weak. "Purge them," Kalen had ordered, his mind on the stability of the realm, his heart still frozen from the death of his own mate, Lyra, years before. Leave no trace of the infection. He had envisioned a surgical strike against armed hostiles. He had never once considered this. The tears he'd suppressed now fell. One, then another, tracking down his rugged cheeks and landing on her small, chapped hand. She flinched, pulling her hand away as if his touch burned. The sight of his tears, the king's tears, shattered her composure. Her own eyes filled. "Why are you here?" she choked out. "The matron said a great benefactor was coming. That you wanted to adopt me. Why? As some kind of pet project? A broken toy to fix so the great Alpha King can feel good about himself?" Kalen shook his head, the guilt a living thing clawing its way up his throat. He had come here because his wolf, Lycaon, had been restless, driving him from the sterile silence of his castle. He had come because the anniversary of his own mate's death was approaching, and the emptiness of his life was threatening to swallow him whole. He'd heard of a girl at the Outer District Orphanage, a shifter who had never shifted, an outcast even among outcasts. He thought he could offer her sanctuary. He thought he could ease his own soul by saving one. He hadn't realized he was coming to face the ghost of his darkest command. I didn't know, he said. The words sounded hollow, pathetic even to his own ears. You didn't want to know, Ilara countered, her voice gaining a sharp, painful strength. Kings don't look at the dirt they tread on, they just give the orders. Matron Scar surged forward, her face purple with rage. That is enough! You will be punished for this, girl, severely. She grabbed the handle of Ilara's wheelchair, yanking it back. Stop! Kalen's voice was no longer the rumble of a man. It was the command of a king. The alpha aura flooded the small, bleak room, pressing Scar against the wall, her eyes wide with terror. Even Ilara gasped, her hand flying to her chest as the raw power washed over her. Kalen stood to his full height, looming over them all. He looked at Scar, his eyes flashing a dangerous gold. You will pack her things, all of them. She is leaving with me. Scar whimpered. Yes, Your Majesty, of course. Her things. She glanced around the bare room. She has nothing, just these clothes and the chair. Kalen's gaze softened as it landed back on Ilara. She was watching him, her face pale with shock, defiance, and a sliver of terrifying, unwelcome hope. No, Ilara whispered. I won't be your penance. I won't be your charity. It is not charity, Kalen said, his voice raw. He knelt again, this time taking her hand and refusing to let go, even when she tugged. And it is not adoption. He met her eyes, letting her see the guilt, the shame, and the sudden, unshakable resolve. It is atonement. I cannot give you back what my command took from you, but I will not leave you here. You will come to the Citadel. You will have the best care, the best doctors, anything you need. I swear this on my crown. Ilara stared at their joined hands. His was large, scarred, and radiated a warmth that fought the perpetual cold in her limbs. She hated him. She hated his power, his pity, his world. But she looked at the peeling, damp walls of the orphanage. She thought of Matron Scar's cruel hands and the taunts of the other shifter children who saw her as less than nothing. She thought of the long, cold nights and the hunger that was a constant companion. Staying here was a slow, agonizing death. Going with him was a chance to survive, a chance, perhaps, to make him pay in ways far more profound than leaving him to his ignorance. I will, she said, her voice clear and cold as ice. Not as your ward, not as your project. She lifted her chin, her silver eyes locking with his gold. I will go as your reminder. I will be the living, breathing proof of what your power does to the weak, and you will look at me every single day. Kalen swallowed, the lump in his throat painful. He had come seeking to quiet a ghost and had instead found a living conscience. I will, he promised. He stood, not breaking her gaze. Torin, he called, his voice carrying to his beta waiting in the hall. Torin, a broad-shouldered wolf with a calm presence, appeared instantly. My king, ready the transport. We are leaving. With Lady Ilara. Kalen reached down, his movements careful. May I? Elara flinched, but gave a stiff nod. Gently, as if she were made of spun glass, the Alpha King lifted her from the broken chair into his arms. She weighed almost nothing. She was stiff, her body rigid with tension, her face turned away from his chest. As he carried her out of the orphanage, past the stunned, silent children and the fuming matron, he felt the faint, shivering tremors of her body. He had expected to feel righteous. Instead, he felt like a thief, stealing the only thing she had left, her hate. And as he settled her into the plush, warm interior of his vehicle, his wolf, Lycaon, stirred in his mind for the first time in 10 years, not with grief, but with a strange, possessive, and utterly confusing purr. Ours. The royal citadel was not a home. It was a fortress of white stone and cold silence. It loomed over the capital city, a testament to Kaelin's reign, efficient, powerful, and devoid of warmth. For Elara, it was a cage, albeit a much larger, cleaner one. The first week was a silent war. Kaelin had a suite of rooms prepared for her, overlooking the vast, snow-dusted mountains. They were beautiful, filled with soft furs, a crackling fireplace, and a library of books. He had also ordered a state-of-the-art wheelchair, lightweight and smoothly oiled. Elara refused it. She insisted on using her old, squeaking chair, the one whose wheels left faint rust marks on the polished marble floors. It was a sound that announced her presence, a grating, metallic accusation that echoed in the cavernous halls. It was the sound of Kaelin's guilt. She ate her meals in her room, refusing to join him in the great hall. She spoke only to the servants, and then only in clipped, polite requests. To Kaelin, she offered silence. He tried, in his own clumsy alpha way, to breach the walls. He brought her things he thought she might like, a rare, blooming winter rose from the greenhouses, a set of charcoal pencils and thick drawing paper, a soft-spun blanket of pure wolf down. She accepted them all with a cool, "Thank you, Your Majesty," and set them aside, unused. Kaelin was frustrated. His wolf, Lycaon, was even worse. The beast, so long dormant, was now a constant, agitated presence in his mind. Go to her. She is cold. Warm her. She is sad. Fix it. I am trying, Kaelin growled aloud to himself one night, pacing his study. She won't let me in. You are a king, Lycaon snarled. You command. Why do you ask? Because I broke her. I don't get to command her healing. He was at an impasse. Torin, his beta, watched with growing concern. My king, the council is restless, Torin said, approaching him in the study. They don't understand her presence. Vardis especially. Kaelin's head snapped up at the name. Vardis was the captain of his enforcers, the very man who had led the cleansing. He was a hard, brutal wolf, but effective. What about Vardis? He's been vocal, Torin said carefully. He says it shows weakness, that bringing a crippled Omega from the slums into the Citadel, it's a stain on your authority. He says you've gone soft. A low growl vibrated in Kaelin's chest. Vardis would do well to remember who holds his leash. Kaelin, Torin pressed, using his given name, a privilege of their long friendship. This is deeper than politics. I see how you look at her. You haven't looked at anyone like that since Lyra. Kaelin froze. Do not, he whispered, his voice dangerously quiet. Do not compare them. I'm not. Lyra was your past. This girl, she's your present. And she's living in it, while you're still trapped. You're trying to atone, but you're atoning to her for what rogues did to Lyra. You're mixing your grief, my friend, and it will poison you both. Torin's words struck home. Kaelin sank into his chair, rubbing his temples. What do I do, Torin? She hates me, and she has every right. Stop trying to be her king, Torin advised. Stop trying to be her benefactor. Just be a man. Talk to her. Not about the past. Not about her legs. Just talk. Kaelin found her in the Glass Gardens, a massive conservatory that was the one warm place in the Citadel. It was where his first mate, Lyra, had spent most of her days. He had not set foot in here since her death. But Elara had found it. She was parked in front of a riot of white moonflowers, their scent heavy in the humid air. Her sketchbook was open on her lap. She was drawing, her hand moving with a speed and confidence that surprised him. He watched for a moment, unseen. She was drawing the citadel, but not the grand, imposing structure. She was drawing the cracks in the stone, the weeds pushing up through the courtyard, the singular chipped gargoyle on her balcony. She saw the flaws. "It's beautiful," he said softly. She jumped, the pencil snapping in her fingers. Her sketchbook slammed shut. The mask of cold indifference fell over her face. "Your Majesty, please," he said, holding up a hand. "Don't. Not here. Here, I am just Kaelin." She eyed him with suspicion. "What do you want, Kaelin?" He walked closer, stopping a few feet away. "Torin says I'm mixing my grief." Elara's eyebrows rose. "Torin is your beta, the one with the kind eyes and the worried expression. He's not wrong." Kaelin was taken aback. You've noticed." "I notice everything," she said quietly. "It's what you do when you can't move. You watch, you listen. I see the way the servants look at you. They fear you. I see the way Torin looks at you. He worries for you. And I see the way you look at me. Like I'm a puzzle you need to solve to make yourself feel better." He flinched. "Is that what you think?" "It's what I know." She gestured around the conservation. "This was her place, wasn't it? Your dead mate. Lyra." Kaelin's blood ran cold. "How did you know her name?" The servants whisper. "They say the king's heart died with his mate. They say he's been a hollow shell ever since." She looked up at him, her silver eyes piercing. "Am I supposed to fix that? Am I supposed to heal your broken heart while I'm still sitting in this chair because of you?" The accusation, so bald and true, broke something in him. The carefully constructed walls of the king crumbled, leaving the grieving man behind. "Yes," he whispered, the admission torn from him. "Yes, I see her everywhere. I see her in these flowers. I see the child we were supposed to have in every empty room. I have been so empty, Elara, for 10 years. When I gave the order, the one that hurt you, I was lashing out. I was a man insane with grief, trying to burn out the entire world because mine was already ashes." He scrubbed a hand over his face. "When I saw you, when you said those words, it was like fate was showing me the bill for all my rage. And I thought, if I can fix this, if I can just fix one thing I broke, maybe I can start to forgive myself." He finally looked at her. She wasn't looking at him with hatred. Her expression was one of profound, heartbreaking understanding. Her own anger, so fierce and protective, seemed to drain away, leaving the deep, aching sorrow beneath. "You can't fix me, Kaelin," she said softly, her voice thick. "I'm not broken. I'm changed. Your men changed me. But my worth wasn't in my legs." "I know," he said, his voice hoarse. "I know that now." She hesitated, then pushed her sketchbook toward him. "Look." He took it. He opened it. It wasn't just drawings of flaws. It was portraits. Stunning, lifelike portraits of the servants, of Torin, caught in a moment of worried thought, of the kitchen cat asleep in a sunbeam. And on the last page, a portrait of him. He was standing on a balcony, looking out at the mountains. He wasn't the king. He was just a man. And the loneliness in his expression, the profound grief she had captured with just a few charcoal lines, made his chest ache. "This is how I see you," she said. "Not as a king, as a fellow prisoner. You're just as trapped as I am." He sank onto the stone bench opposite her, the sketchbook held in his hands like a sacred text. For the first time, the silence between them wasn't a war. It was a truce. I had the royal physician look at the reports from the orphanage," Kalen said, his voice careful. Ilara tensed immediately. "And?" He said the orphanage report was basic. They just said spinal trauma. He wants to do a full examination. He's a healer, Ilara, a true shifter healer. He might be able to help." She looked down at her hands. The hope she'd been fighting, the tiny, treacherous seed of it, was starting to sprout. I don't want to be disappointed again." "I will be with you," he said, a vow, "the entire time, if you'll let me." She looked at the portrait of the lonely man in her book, then at the real man in front of her, his golden eyes raw with a plea. "All right," she whispered. "All right, Kalen. I'll let him try." The physician was an old wolf named Elias, his hands gentle and his eyes holding the wisdom of a century. He examined Ilara in her rooms, with Kalen standing vigil by the window, his back to them to give her privacy, but his presence a solid, grounding force. Elias worked in silence for a long time, his hands glowing with a faint blue healing light as he passed them over her spine. Ilara was rigid, her breathing shallow. Finally, Elias straightened up, his brow furrowed. "Well," Kalen demanded, turning. "It is not what I expected," Elias said slowly. "Your Majesty, may I speak with you alone?" Ilara's head snapped up. "No, whatever it is, you say it to me. It's my body." Elias looked at her, his expression softening. "As you wish, my lady." He took a deep breath. "The injury, it is not physical, not entirely. Her spine is not severed. The bones are bruised, yes, but they are intact. They should have healed." Kalen stepped forward. "Then why? Why can't she walk?" "Because something is blocking the nerve pathways," Elias said, his voice grim. "It's magic, dark magic. It's old, and it feels parasitic. It's like a lock, clamped onto her spiritual energy, her very wolf." Ilara went pale. "Magic? But the rogues were driven out. Who—" "That is the question," Elias said. "This was not a rogue's sloppy curse.
This was precise, deliberate. Someone meant to bind you, Lady Ilara, to sever you from your wolf and your legs." Kalen felt a cold fury, unlike anything he'd ever known, settle in his chest. This wasn't collateral damage. This wasn't an accident in the heat of a cleansing. This was an assassination attempt. Or worse, a caging. "Who?" Kalen's voice was a low snarl. "Who in my realm wields this magic?" "I do not know," Elias said. "But it is strong, and it is tied. Your Majesty, it's tied to the land, to the citadel itself. The signature, it's faint, but it feels like one of your enforcers." Kalen's blood turned to ice. Vardas, the man who complained he was soft, the man who led the cleansing, the man who smelled of ozone and cold steel. "Ilara," Kalen said, his voice tight. The man who struck you. You said he smelled like me, like power. Did you see his face?" Ilara was trembling, her eyes wide with a dawning horror. I don't know. It was dark. He was huge. He wore the black armor of the enforcers. He had an amulet. It glowed, a dull, oily black. Kalen's wolf, like Kion, was screaming in his mind. Treachery, deceit, in our own house. Vardas was not just a brutal captain. He was a wielder of dark magic, hidden in plain sight, right under Kalen's nose. The cleansing, it hadn't just been about rogues. It had been a purge. Vardas had been eliminating. What? Threats? Witnesses? "Elias," Kalen commanded, "can you break it?" I can try," the old healer said, "but it is dangerous. The magic is rooted in her life force. Trying to break it could kill her. Or it could shatter the caster if he is nearby and connected to it." "Do it," Ilara said, her voice shaking but firm. "No," Kalen said at the same time. He looked at Elias. "If the caster is alerted, he will know we are on to him. He will come to finish the job. We need proof. We need a witness." "There are none, my king," Torin said, stepping into the room. He had been guarding the door. "The entire slum was razed and rebuilt. Whoever saw, they're gone." "No," Ilara whispered. "There is a witness. Me." Kalen turned to her. "What do you mean?" I can't shift," she stammered, a deep, old shame coloring her cheeks. "My wolf, she's always been quiet, weak. That's why they called me Runt, Omega trash." Kalen felt a strange pull. "Omega," he breathed. "Elias," Kalen said, a sudden, wild idea forming. If I lend her my strength, an alpha's power, could she push past the block? Just enough to see?" Elias's eyes widened. "An alpha-omega transfer? My king, that is incredibly intimate. It's a bond reserved for mates," Kalen finished, his heart hammering. He looked at Ilara, and the world tilted. The scent of moonflowers and winter air, the silver eyes, the fierce, unbreakable spirit, the way his wolf had purred hours. It wasn't pity, it wasn't atonement. It was recognition. "Oh, goddess," he whispered. He saw it in her eyes too, the dawning, terrified realization, the way she had been drawn to his portrait, the way his presence, even when she hated him, soothed something deep inside her. "No," she whispered, her hands flying to her mouth. "It can't be. Your mate, she died." "A wolf can, in rare cases, have a second-chance mate," Kalen said, his voice thick. "A fated one, if the first was chosen. Lyra, she was my chosen mate, a political alliance that grew into love. But you, Ilara, I think you are my fated mate." The revelation hung in the air, beautiful and terrible. Fate had bound her to the man whose orders had destroyed her life. Ilara began to cry, silent, agonizing tears. "No, no, I reject it. I reject you. I will not be mated to the man who, she couldn't even say it. Ilara," he pleaded, taking a step toward her. "Get out!" she screamed, her voice cracking. "Get out! I hate you! I will always hate you!" The force of her rejection hit him like a physical blow. His wolf howled in his mind, a sound of pure agony. The nascent bond, shimmering and new, fractured. Kalen staggered, clutching his chest. The pain was excruciating, 1,000 times worse than any physical wound.
As you wish, he choked out. He turned, his movements wooden, and stumbled from the room. Torin and Elias watched him go, their faces pale. "My lady," Elias said softly, "you have just done a terrible thing." "He deserved it," Ilara sobbed, her body racked with pain, both from the rejection and the dark magic that now felt like it was tightening, sensing her distress. "Perhaps," Elias said, his old eyes sad, "but you have also just rejected the only wolf who has the power to help you break this curse." As Kalen stormed through the halls, his mind a whirlwind of agony and rage, he barely registered the figure that stepped into his path. It was Vardis. "My king," Vardis said, his voice a gravelly monotone. He held his black enforcer's helmet under his arm. His eyes were a pale, cold blue. "You seem distressed." Kalen stopped. He looked at the man who had served him for 15 years, the man who had led the cleansing, the man who smelled of ozone and cold steel. "Vardis," Kalen snarled, his grief momentarily eclipsed by a white-hot, clarifying rage. "You are relieved of your command. You will be confined to your quarters until my investigation is complete." Vardis didn't even blink. Instead, a slow, cold smile spread across his face. "Investigation. Into what, my king?" He spat the word. "Into treason!" Kalen roared and lunged. But Vardis was prepared. He raised his hand, the black amulet on his wrist flaring. A wall of dark energy slammed into Kalen, sending the Alpha King flying back against the stone wall.
"You are a fool, Kalen," Vardis sneered, advancing. "For 10 years you've been a ghost, mourning a weak female. You let your kingdom rot. I have been cleansing it, purging the weakness you refuse to see." "The girl," Kalen gasped, pushing himself up, the dark magic clinging to him like tar. "The Omega?" Vardis laughed. "Oh yes, a rare, true-born Omega, a healer. Can you imagine? Such power wasted on a slum-dwelling runt. I didn't mean to just cripple her. I meant to drain her. But she was stronger than I thought. Her power locked itself away. So I caged her instead. A living battery waiting for me to acquire the final piece I needed." "What? What piece?" Kalen growled, his wolf fighting against the magic. Vardis's smile was terrifying. "Your crown, of course. Your alpha power. And now, thanks to your little mate, you are broken. Your bond is fractured. You are weak." He raised his amulet again. "I will take your power, Kalen. I will finish the cleansing. And I will finally kill the girl." The sound of the explosion rocked the citadel to its foundations. Ilara was thrown from her chair as the wall of her suite blasted inward. Elias shielded her with his own body, the old wolf grunting as stone fragments peppered his back. "He knows!" Elias yelled over the ringing in their ears. "Vardis knows!" Ilara's world was a haze of dust, pain, and absolute terror. The rejection, the agonizing snap of the bond had left her feeling hollowed out. But the magic in her spine was now burning. It was alive, and it was terrified. Vardis stalked into the room, his black armor covered in dust. He shoved Elias aside like a rag doll. He looked down at Ilara, crumpled on the floor. "Such a shame," he mused, his voice dripping with false pity. "The king is dead. His own guardsman, can you believe it? And now, in the chaos, the poor, crippled girl, she died too. A tragic accident. "No!" Ilara whispered, dragging herself backward. "Kalen! He's not... Oh, he's not dead! Yet!" A voice roared from the hallway. Kalen burst into the room, his royal tunic torn, his face bleeding, but his golden eyes blazing with a primal fury that transcended the pain of the rejection. "You will not touch her, Vardis." "Touching her is the least of my plans," Vardis sneered. He lunged, not at Kalen, but at Ilara. "No!" Kalen roared. He did the one thing Vardis didn't expect. He didn't meet the attack. He didn't try to counter. He threw himself in front of Ilara, his back to Vardis, shielding her small body with his own. It was the ultimate alpha sacrifice. Vardis' hand, glowing with the black, parasitic magic of the amulet, slammed into Kalen's spine. Kalen screamed. It was a sound of pure, unadulterated agony, a sound that ripped the soul from the body. He collapsed, his body convulsing, the dark magic pouring into him, draining his alpha light, his very life force. "Kalen!" Ilara shrieked. Something inside her, the ancient, sleeping power of the true Omega, snapped. Seeing him fall, for her, seeing the man she had just rejected, the man who had caused her so much pain, give his life to protect her, it broke the final lock. The pain in her spine, the rejection, the fear, it all coalesced into a single point of light. Vardis, laughing triumphantly, raised his amulet to strike the killing blow. "Get away from my mate!" Ilara roared. The voice was not her own. It was 1,000 voices, ancient and powerful. A column of pure silver light exploded from her, blasting Vardis off his feet and sending him crashing against the far wall. The entire citadel hummed, a deep, resonant note of power. Ilara was standing. She was shaking, her legs buckling, but she was on her own 2 feet for the first time in 3 years. The silver light of the Omega, the power of life and healing, poured from her in waves. Her flannel shirt and jeans seemed to dissolve, replaced by a simple, shimmering dress of moonlight. Her wolf, no longer a wisp, but a vast, ethereal silver presence, stood behind her, its eyes wise and furious. Vardis stared, his eyes wide with disbelief. "No! Impossible! You're whole." "I am," Ilara said, her voice echoing with power. She took a step, then another. She walked. She walked to Kalen's side. He was dying. The black magic was consuming him, his skin gray, his breathing shallow. She knelt beside him, the silver light from her hands enveloping him. You foolish, stubborn, infuriating man," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. "You don't get to die. I'm not done being angry with you." She pressed her hands to his chest. The silver light met the black magic. The dark energy screamed as it was burned away, purified by the Omega's healing. "The bond," she choked out, feeling it, no longer fractured, but weak and fading. I accept it. Kalen, do you hear me? I accept you. I claim you. Now live." She poured her very essence into him. Kalen's eyes snapped open. He gasped a deep, shuddering breath, and the golden light of the Alpha flared back to life, mixing with her silver. The bond, healed and sealed, exploded between them, a supernova of faded power. "Ilara," he breathed, his hand finding hers. "I've got you," she whispered. Vardis scrambled to his feet, his face a mask of terror.
This changes nothing. I will." Ilara didn't even look at him. She raised one hand. She didn't attack him. She didn't strike him. She simply pulled. Varda screamed as the shadows, the stolen parasitic magic he had siphoned for years, were ripped from his body. The dark power dissolved harmlessly in Ilara's silver light. Vardis collapsed, no longer a powerful dark mage, but just a man, a weak, trembling, gray-faced man. Torin and the royal guard, finally alerted, burst into the room, their swords drawn. They stopped, stunned at the scene, their king rising to his feet, healed. The shattered wall, the cowering Vardas. And Ilara, the girl from the slums, standing beside her king, bathed in a light that was not of this world, her hand held firmly in his. "Torin," Kalen said, his voice rough but strong. He pulled Ilara to his side, his arms securely around her waist as her legs finally trembled from exhaustion. "Arrest this trash. Take him to the deepest cell. He will await the Queen's judgment." Torin's eyes widened. "Queen?" Ilara looked up at Kalen, her body exhausted but her spirit soaring. He looked down at her, his golden eyes filled with a love and devotion that was so profound, it stole her breath. The man who had caused her deepest pain had become her greatest protector. The king who had tried to adopt her had become her fated mate. I think I'm going to need that new wheelchair for a little while," she whispered, her legs giving out. He caught her, lifting her easily into his arms, just as he had at the orphanage. But this time, it was not an act of atonement. "You will never need it again," Kalen vowed, his voice thick with emotion. "I am your strength now." "And I," she whispered, her head resting on his chest, her silver light fading to a soft glow, "I'm yours." He carried her from the room, past his stunned guards, his wolf and her wolf, finally at peace. 3. The next 6 months were a storm. The trial of Vardas exposed a rot within the enforcers that Kalen, with Ilara's intuitive guidance, ruthlessly purged. The story of the Alpha King and his Omega Queen became a legend whispered in the streets. A story of atonement, sacrifice, and a power greater than any of them had known. Ilara's recovery was slow. Her Omega power was immense, but her physical body needed time to relearn everything. She spent her days in physical therapy, Kalen often sitting in the corner of the room, doing his state paperwork just to be near her. He refused to let her out of his sight. Her old, rusted wheelchair was melted down, the metal reforged into the hilt of a ceremonial dagger that Ilara now wore at her hip, a reminder not of her weakness, but of the strength she had found in her darkest moments. Kalen was a changed man. The cold, grieving king was gone. In his place was a true alpha. Protective, yes, but also warm, compassionate, and deeply in love. He listened to his people. He visited the districts, and he ruled not with an iron fist, but with an open hand, Ilara at his side. This evening, he found her where he always found her, the glass gardens. She was not in a chair. She was standing, her hands pressed against the glass, looking out at the rising moon. He came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist, pulling her back against his chest. She leaned into his strength, her hands covering his. "You're thinking so loudly, my love," he rumbled, nuzzling her silver blonde hair. "What's wrong?" "I'm not strong enough yet," she whispered, a familiar frustration. I still stumble. I still need you to hold me up." He turned her in his arms, his golden eyes fierce and tender. "Ilara, you healed me from the brink of death. You purified half my guard. You walk. You stand.
You are the strongest person I have ever known." He tilted her chin up. "And I will always be here to hold you. Stumble, fall, I will catch you. That is my vow." "I know," she said, a soft smile touching her lips. "But it's your turn to be strong. I have something to tell you." He tensed. "What is it?" She took his large, scarred hand and placed it on her stomach. "Elias was here today. It wasn't just my power that was blocked, Kaelin. It was everything." She met his gaze, her silver eyes shining with a new, radiant light. "I'm pregnant." Kaelin's breath hitched.
The Alpha King, the man who had faced down traitors and death, went utterly still. A single tear, the third she had ever seen him shed, rolled down his cheek. But this was not a tear of guilt or of grief. It was a tear of pure, unadulterated joy. "A pup," he whispered, his voice breaking. He sank to his knees, not as a king, not as a prisoner, but as a mate, and pressed his forehead to her stomach. He was shaking. "Lyra, we couldn't. I thought—" "She is not Lyra," Elara said softly, her fingers tangling in his hair. "I am not her. And this is not our past. This is our future." He looked up at her, his heart so full he thought it might burst. The poor girl in the wheelchair, the broken Alpha King. They had found each other in the wreckage of their pasts and had built a new, stronger, more beautiful life. "I love you," he said, the words encompassing everything. "My queen, my mate, my miracle." "And I love you," she replied, pulling him to his feet. He kissed her, a deep, promising kiss under the light of the full moon, in the garden that was no longer a place of ghosts, but a place of new life.